everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. Each and every week, we are bringing you content, tips, and things you can put in your toolkit to help you live a more balanced and successful life. Honestly, as we are getting into summer, so many things are jockeying for our attention. And honestly, in this pandemic season, how did we get so busy? Today's episode, we're going to focus in on time, task management versus time management. This valuable commodity that we have, how are we using it and what are we going to do with it? Of course, we all know we cannot get any time back. So, as the saying goes, we have to use our time wisely so time is well spent. I want to welcome in all of our guests today just so we can have a little bit of a conversation about how time is really eluding us. Welcome in, everyone.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie.
Hey, y'all. How's it going?
I'm good.
Good. I tell you, after our conversation on last week, it really got me and all of us talking about, what are we doing with the time that we have? It seems like things all of a sudden just got so rushed and got so hurried and our calendars filled up. But this mid-year checkup is really important so that we don't go back to old habits, old ways of doing things, and literally getting sucked in and dragged in and pulled in to other people's things. That's the best word I can think of right now. Getting pulled into other people's things that really keep us from being out of sync. I want to ask you all, how do you do it? How are you making this transition, Pastor JT, from being not as busy to your schedule just literally blowing up?
Wow. That is a great question, Dr. Jacquie, and thank you again for having me on. Man, during quarantine, I really got an opportunity to pause and to stop. Here locally, I ran for school board at the end of 2019, and 2020 actually came, and it was kind of like, hey, God is saying, Jamel, get some rest. And I rested. But I saw that I still had some of the same habits, because what I did while the world was shut down and we weren't moving as much in the streets, we were Zooming more than the Commodores was. and so then now, as we have kind of gotten back to kind of being open, so many people who had the luxury of Zooming are now opting for more in person. And so me being a pastor, there are a lot of different initiatives or a lot of different engagements that I have to be at. But then on top of that, with the community work that I do, there's a lot. But one thing that I have learned, I think that was a valuable lesson during quarantine, is I have to qualify my time. I have to really see if this is benefiting me, if this is something that I can wait to possibly get the notes from after the event is over. Is this something that if there's a link that is given, should I actually take advantage of being online? Or is it something that needs my presence? And I believe, kind of piggybacking off of the conversation that we had last week about keeping your goals in front of you, I think that is a huge determiner of what you do with your time. If your goals are in front of you, you don't have time to waste, because if you're goal oriented, you know that every moment matters. So I really believe it comes down to really qualifying your time and being okay with saying, no, I can't do it. Because if you don't say no, then you're going to find yourself right back where we were before quarantine. And so many people, I believe that they confused the sign to quit with being exhausted.
That's a very interesting and impactful statement. Stacey, when you think about these things related to time and how we parcel out our day, what does that look like for you? Because you're a business owner, you're running a school, you're dealing with kids, you're dealing with family, but there's still Stacey. What does your mid-year checkup look like as it relates to how you govern your time?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's loaded, because like I said before we came on, you want me to talk about time management. I'm still working on figuring that out. But I will say that during the pandemic, where everyone slowed down and had the opportunity to stop, unfortunately, from the school perspective, it seems like that became one of the busiest times for us, because they didn't know what to do in this situation. And so every week we were getting a new direction to take, a new goal to set, a new problem to solve. And so when the world opened back up and we got to come back outside, things still stayed the same, because now the question became, what's the new normalcy going to look like for school? What are we going to do now? How do we need to make adjustments for students? How do we need to fix what happened during the pandemic? And so what I found for myself is I had to start pacing myself in terms of, if I had a goal that was established, I needed to break that goal down into action steps. Like, what is that micro action that I need to take to be able to reach those goals, so that I can then be intentional about determining which ones do I need to focus on right now? Like, what's the closest alligator to my boat? So I can map out, which ones can I give to someone else to work with? And then I had to be careful of those distraction traps, because we tend to, after we have these action steps and these goals that we're working on, I found that it was easy for me to focus on the things that were fun to do. And those things that were a little bit more serious and take a little bit more time, I found myself procrastinating or allowing those distraction traps to sort of get me involved in doing things that wasn't meaningful or purposeful at that time. So I had to learn to identify, what is important for moving towards that purpose. What can I take off my list and say no to? What can I give to someone else? What can I simply say, what, there's no time for this one, and it's okay if I don't get to it. So I think the hardest thing for me was learning how to accept that it's okay if I can't do everything, because I'm not a superwoman. And so when I say no, learn how to accept that and not feel guilty about it. And if I gave something to someone else, learn how to trust that they would be fine doing it. And then just learn how to move within my personal space. And I'm still working on adding what that self-care looked like for me. I'm getting better at it, but it's still a work in progress.
I can truly identify with the work in progress. I hope that our audience was listening, because you gave 3 great Ds. First, I heard you clearly say there are things that we do by duty, stuff that we have to do. It's our responsibility, so we have to participate in it. Don't get distracted, by the things that aren't necessarily for you, and then have trust enough to delegate. I think that those 3 tips right there alone are ways to help some of our audience figure out how to get a foundational baseline to taking their time back. Now, Dr. Tierney, we have heard Auntie Maxine for a long time tell us about reclaiming our time. Talk to us about some of the ways that people can reclaim their time, but also how are you reclaiming your time for the things that matter for your personal self-care in this mid-year checkup?
Absolutely. So as I was listening to my good friend, Pastor JT, talk about how we were Zooming more than the Commodores. Well, if we were Zooming more than the Commodores, then I was Lionel Richie, because right during the pandemic, that's when everything picked up with my business. It was stressful for everyone. And so that's when we started really focusing in on our mental health, our self-care. And so I started my business right before the pandemic hit. And let me tell you, it picked up, right as things, were shutting down for other people. I was on roller skates. And so I had to learn very quickly, in this new space with this new business, doing this new thing on this new level, that I needed a new way to approach my time, and to be there for others, but also to be there for myself. So part of this was, the coach in me, but part of this was I also had to learn it just for myself, because I was finding at the end of each day I was depleted, because I was giving, to everyone else, but then wasn't leaving anything, for myself. So I had to get really intentional. And this is what I encourage my clients to do. Get really intentional about the time that you give them, and also the time that you give yourself, and make sure that you are giving yourself as much time as you're giving them. So if you're giving your job that 9 to 5, then you need to make sure that you're giving yourself just as much time as you're giving your job. And it doesn't mean that you have to totally disconnect and not do anything, but it could be the small things. It could be, going for a walk. It could be taking that PTO. Some of us walking around here with 4 weeks of paid time off that we haven't taken. You better take your PTO, that's your time, so that's a way that we can reclaim our time back and do the things that we need so that we are refueled, re-energized. That can mean taking a trip, I just came back from an amazing vacation where I did I did a lot. I'm not going to say I didn't do anything, but I did not do anything work-wise. I did not do anything for them. I did everything that I wanted to do to rejuvenize myself, and so that's one of the ways that we can really be intentional about our use of our time and making sure that we're putting ourselves first in that.
Thank you for sharing, everyone. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we want to talk a little bit more about what does that look like, taking time for yourself. Our mid-year checkup really does require us to step back, press pause. And, as Dr. Tierney says, sometimes you got to take a beat. And that's really important when we come back after the break, how you can engage in your own self-care.
Put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you eat 10.
Oh my God.
So what?
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. We have had some really stimulating discussions. I hope you got your pen, pad, digital device, and are taking some notes, because it's in this season, this mid-year checkup that we're having, where you can literally have things fall into place, or yourself can just personally fall apart. And oftentimes it has to do a lot with how we engage with the time that we have in the course of a day, the course of a week, the course of a month, a quarter, or a year. Now, Stacey mentioned something very interesting. She talked about these micro action steps. And for just a few minutes in this segment, I want to talk about time management versus task management, because oftentimes we put 1,000 things on our list and we think that we can do them. But when you get to the steps that it takes, oftentimes we realize that we are in way over our head, and we also aren't properly prepared to do the work. Stacey, can you talk to us for a little bit, just a bit more about some of the micro steps? Because oftentimes people, I'm going to do 10 things in the course of the day. I'm a Franklin Covey girl. And so I will put things on my planner, and then I realize I really don't have time for B's and C's. It's really only the A1s and A2s. I've literally stopped putting A3s on my calendar. Stacey Owens, talk to us a little bit about what it means and how you do your micro action steps.
So I take my goal and then I break it down to an action. Like, okay, what do you need to do specifically to meet that goal? And I used to do a things to do list in my daily journal, but I've changed that, because like you said, if I was to write down a things to do list, it would be so massive that I just would end up getting overwhelmed. So now I have what I call an intentional list. So I look at my goal that I set, and I broke it down to about 3 to 4 intentional small action steps to take. And then I put those on my intentional list for today. I'll still keep a things to do list over on the left-hand side, and I'll look over there and I'll say, all right, what's happening in my day that has to happen? Like if I have a meeting, or if I have a doctor's appointment, or if I have something that just has to happen that day, I'll look at those things, and then I'll say, is there anything in here that I can adjust? Like, okay, I can't adjust my doctor's appointment, but if I'm about to sit in a meeting that I don't necessarily have to sit in, and I can have somebody else sit into that meeting, then let me move that off. That doesn't make it to my intentional list. It stays on that things to do list or my delegated list, right? So I end up on my intentional list for the day having about 5 things that I have to do for that day. So now I'm working towards the intention of what's going to move me in a forward progression of my goal. If I get those 5 things done, it can go over to that things to do list and look at that and do great. If I don't get those 5 things due, then I'll move them to tomorrow's intentions list because I want to start there. I sort of track. If something has moved more than 3 times in that week, now I'm starting to look at that intention a little deeper to say, what is it about this step or this action step that I'm procrastinating about? So it's just being really intentional about my thoughts to make sure that I'm focusing my time in the areas that's going to move whatever I'm working on.
When you have that type of approach, Stacey, does it allow you to have more time for yourself? Can you take a lunch? Can you take a walk around the building? Can you just close your door and have, a little bit of a respite from everything when you utilize that method?
I add those to the intentional list because it was one time in my life that I would go all day and wouldn't eat, or I would go all day and wouldn't take a break, and I would sit here for 14-hour days and stay in one spot, and that wasn't healthy for me. That made me gain 50 pounds. That made me, your bones in your body start aching because you're not moving. So I sort of add on my journal, I have a thing for, I identify self-care. What's my one self-care thing that I'm going to do today? And I add that to the list so that I can make myself be intentional about doing that. So it can be anything from reading a book for a few minutes. It can be anything from just taking a walk around the block, but I add to my intentional list one self-care thing to make sure that I do that for that day as well.
Those are great tips and tools, because certainly we all need to engage in ways to put ourselves on our own schedule. Dr. Tierney, these things that we talk about doing and providing time for self-care, there is a word that always comes up, ladies, when we are trying to take time for ourselves. How do you deal with the guilt, Dr. Tierney, of putting you on your schedule?
Yeah, that's the word, guilt. So here's the thing, and we said it last time, but it bears saying again. Self-care is not selfish, okay? And yeah, we hear that, sounds nice, it rhymes, but think about it this way. When you get on an airplane, okay, and it's a lot of travel happening right now, you get on the airplane and the flight attendants get up and they do the safety thing. And they tell you, if we lose cabin pressure, oxygen mask will fall from in front of you, and they'll do the little thing and, go through the whole spiel. And there's one thing that they say: secure your mask first before assisting others, And in thinking about it, that way, and often when they show it on the little screen, they show you putting your mask on before even assisting your child, Now, most of us will hear that and go, oh my gosh, no, I have to make sure that my child is okay first. But think about it. If you are sitting here asphyxiating because you can't breathe, then how can you help your child? How can you help anyone? And that's the way we have to look at doing things for ourselves. If I'm too busy trying to rush up and help the man in seat 9A put his oxygen mask on, but then I collapse, from a lack of oxygen on my way to him, have I really served him? It's better when we serve ourselves and make sure that we can breathe. We put our oxygen mask on. We are, rested. We're drinking our water. We're doing that self-care thing that we need, because it will make us better equipped to help other people. And when we look at it that way, then you can ask yourself, now, is that really being selfish? Honestly, it's being selfish when we don't do those things. When I don't take care of my body, when I don't take care of my mental and emotional needs, I'm being selfish towards my husband, because now when he comes home, he is don't talk, get away from, and he's coming home into an environment where I'm just on 10, because I haven't done my work. Now, is that fair to him? I'm being selfish in that manner. So when you take that different lens and look at it from that perspective, it makes you then make self-care much more of a priority, because that when you're doing that, it makes you a better mom, a better wife, a better daughter, a better niece, or whatever the role is that you're trying to serve others from.
Now, I have a part 2 question related to that, because that guilt is there. You're taking time for yourself so that you can be better for other people. But there are people in our space who oftentimes don't understand the value of being able to pull away from your environment so that you can have the self-care. Dr. Tierney, why is it important to step away from things that appear to become, I'm going to say this correctly, appear to be becoming toxic? Because oftentimes people won't let you withdraw. They won't let you prioritize yourself. There's the constant text, the constant phone call, the constant everything. How do you help others understand that you have to make you a priority without, falling into that guilt trap or being guilt tripped into going and doing it anyway?
Absolutely. So I love something that you said. They won't let you step away or let you. Well, sugar, it's not about what they let you or allow you to do, because then you're giving them your power. I can't step away unless you give me permission to do so. Again, let's take this different lens, look at it. You are the one, you have the agency and the sense of power over yourself. You know what you need, they don't. And really, and I know I'm probably going to get some messages and some tweets about it. It's okay. It's fine. I can take it, but I'm going to say it anyway. At the heart of all of us, we're selfish. We want what we want. So I'm not really thinking about your needs. I'm thinking about what I want. So yeah, I'm going to keep texting you. Yeah, I'm going to keep calling because I'm trying to get what I want. It's not my job to make sure you're rested. That's your job, and that's all of our individual jobs. So if the texts keep coming, guess what? They're going to keep coming as long as you keep responding. We shape people's listening for us. So trust me. If you stop responding to those text messages, guess what? They will figure it out, or they'll go and text somebody else. If you start practicing the whole word no, period, that's a whole sentence. You don't have to give no explanation, no definition, no, well, because any of that. If you start saying no, then guess what? They will then get the message that I can't just dump my stuff on them. I can't just go to them and ask them to always be present for what I need. Because a lot of times they need to figure out what it is that they need for themselves and stop going to you to fulfill their needs that they need to be doing their work on. So this is the piece where it's not about what they allow you to do. It's not about them making a space for you. You have to do that for yourself. That is your responsibility, not theirs.
Responsibility seems to fall on a lot of shoulders, and oftentimes it's very difficult to allow it to rest on you or rest on other people. Pastor JT, when we talk about how do we optimize time for ourselves, I literally can say that I am more productive when I shut off my phone, when I close my door, when I don't respond to other people. It's like getting into this zone where you can just physically begin to see yourself obtain physical, mental, and spiritual clarity. How important is clarity for self, Pastor JT, as we begin to move ourselves forward in this next half of the year?
I believe clarity for self is non-negotiable. I've repeated this, and I know that many of our listeners will probably say, you said that last week. Well, I'm going to continue to say it. I think that is so many times that we are so consumed with doing that we have stopped being. And then when we stop being, we lose sight of self. And going back to what Dr. T said, it was just, I'm sitting here taking notes myself. You have to be so intentional with you, because if you are not your best you are now a disservice to everybody else. I know, not trying to be preachy, but I guess I am the resident pastor on the show. But even Jesus himself, on the heels of one of his greatest miracles, after he fed the 5,000, Jesus tells his disciples, hey, man, y'all go on to the other side. I'll catch up with y'all. And the Bible says that Jesus went into the mountain and he prayed. He stealed away. He had to refresh. He had to regain all of the virtue back that he had just released. Because in the very next chapter, they were going to meet a man in the tombs that was dealing with a mental health issue that was cutting himself. And Jesus needed to be at his best version of himself to be able to give the man what he needed. Now, if Jesus would have gone to him and he was lethargic, he was tired, then the man probably would have left with the situation even worse, and Jesus would not have been able to be who he was called to be. Now, I'm not saying that we're all Jesus, but I believe that there is some God in us. And I believe that we have to be able to be real with ourselves and know when we're tired, know when we are exhausted, know when our cup is empty. But again, that's you being present with the person that you have been with all your life. And that's you. And so many times we are so consumed with other people and serving other people. But I think a lot of that, and I really don't want to turn the corner with this conversation, but I think a lot of that comes with many of us wanting to please other people or affirmations from other people. And then we feel that's what drives the obligation of us in our bed, jumping up to answer the phone for somebody else who is not even respectful of our time. I even, and man, it was one night. I'll just be honest, man. Hey, mama, love you. She watches the show. She loves me on everything that I'm on, but she really loves you, Dr. J. But I know she's going to hear this. But it was one night, everybody in my family know I go to bed, right when the 9 o'clock news come on. I'm gone. And so my mom called me and I jumped up and I'm like, mama, what's wrong? Because everybody know I go to sleep at 9. And so mom was like, well, no, I'll just call and tell you something that I saw. Mama, no, we don't do that, baby. Because the first thing that I thought is something was wrong because everybody knows that I go to bed at 9. And so then mama said, well, all right, I won't call you after 9 no more. And you know what, Dr. J? Mama ain't called me after 9. I have a defined boundary. And regardless of the role that you have in my life, if you love me the way that you say you do, you will respect the boundary that I have in place. Because if you don't respect my boundary, you have now disrespected the relationship that we have.
Wow. I'm going to tell you that's a perfect segue for our break. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about that very thing, boundaries, and how to optimize your time when you walk away. I said it. Sometimes you have to just walk away. And oftentimes we stay too long. We give to people too much, and then they just continue to take, and take. When we're back after the break.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. Whew, let me tell you, I know. Go ahead and add us, tweet us, text us, post all your little threads and notes. We're here for it because one of the things that we desire to do is to help you to design a life so that you can be able to do the things that you want to do, not always the things that you have to do and that you must do. And I'm going to pause here for a second. And in an ability for us to be enabled, but not be enablers, we need to figure out how to step away from people, situations, and circumstances. I'm inviting everybody back in for this conversation because let me tell you, it gets tough. It gets tough, y'all, to be able to tell people goodbye. We're not doing this. I'm not here for it. And no, it literally weighs heavy on us to be able to just walk away. I'm going to start with Stacey because, Stacey, I know that in your profession and in your career, whether it's on the business side, the parent side, the children's side, or even in your own personal life, you have discovered how to just say, this is what we're not going to do. Talk to us about that for a moment, because there are some people who really don't know how to broach that conversation of, I'm clear that we're done. What does that look like in your life for maximizing yourself?
Well, first I have to say, before the break, Pastor gave a word. And if nobody else got that word, for me, because I had one of the hardest times in this job last week, and I needed every bit of that. So thank you for that. But I think it goes back to just accepting the fact that you just have to communicate to folks and say, I'm gonna choose me now. And that was one of the things I had to learn, even as recent as last week. So many people are plugged into me, and I was in that position of giving so much that I gave too much. And so then it became the expectation that everybody was entitled to just continue to take from me. And so when I started saying enough, they didn't want to hear it, because now they felt I had betrayed them, because in previous times when that boundary wasn't as clear, you were so used to me being the one that just carried you. And everybody has to be able to carry their own water. So I think for myself, I'm learning, I'm still working on just being able to say, I'm empty right now. I don't have anything else to give. And that's a non-negotiable. And you have two choices that you can make. You can be receptive of that and understand it and give me time to fill my cup and come back. Or you can get emotionally detached and angry. But at either way, and whatever choice that person make, it's their choice to make, and I'm gonna let them hold it. I'm gonna let you hold the choices that you make, because I'm gonna clearly say when I'm done and when I can't do anymore. And now it's for you to receive that. So I don't know if that's the answer that everybody is looking for, but I think in the last lesson that I had to learn in the last 2 weeks, that's the space that I got into. And Pastor just told me why. Because if Jesus can do it, I can too.
Sometimes knowing your why you need to walk away is all that you need. I think Dr. Tierney said you don't have to give people a reason for why you need your space, because it's your space. And that becomes quite evident and clear. One of the things that you said that resonated was, I'm choosing me now. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that is so hard for people to say. And it's also hard for other people to accept. Dr. Tierney, why is there a danger in being overly accessible?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I want to back up a little bit and touch on some of the points to kind of answer that question. So one of the reasons why we get so wrapped up in doing all the things, I mentioned it, I think, in one of the very first or second episodes that we had, where I said people get drunk on needing to be needed. They derive their identity from what they do. And if I'm not doing this, then who am I? And so it goes back to what Pastor JT was saying. We have to get, wrapped up in where we are and who we are and what we need. And if we're not into our who, then we're going to be doing things that are outside of the limits, or the boundaries of where we need to be. Something else, when we talk about boundaries, remember, boundaries are about us. They're not barriers. Barriers are about them. So when we erect barriers, we're trying to keep them out. We're trying to just stop them from calling. When we say boundaries, it's about what we need in this moment. I need to rest. So this is why I'm not, going here or answering that, or, when we have a clear view of that, when we have a clear view of who we are, we have a clear view of what we need, we have a clear view of our goals and what we need to do to go after those goals, it makes it easy to say no. I don't care if you throw a tantrum. I don't care if you are all upset and got your panties in a bunch, because I'm not jumping through your hoops, because I am so focused on where I am, whose I am, and what I've been called to do, that your emotional outbursts does not impact me. This is how we detach from getting into that thing of people pleasing and really working for man's approval and not God's approval. This is why it's important that we make sure that we take that step back, that we don't get into that, because then we will become almost like a performing monkey for them, losing sight of us and what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And when we're talking about that in terms of time management, that's when we get into falling into some of those time warps and time gaps, where we look up and be like, oh, I don't know what happened. I was just 25 years old. And now all of a sudden, like, what happened? Because we were living for them and not living for ourselves.
Ooh, man, I want y'all to hold on to that. Living for them and not living for ourselves. This conversation and dialogue can take so many different turns. And as we're engaging ourselves, and I hope that you are, as you're watching and you're taking your notes, that you're engaging yourself and taking a really good assessment into where your life is in this moment? And how did you get so far away from where you thought you would be? Now, of course, we all identify and can understand that life happens. People get sick, people die, people get married, people have kids. Whole host of things happen. People lose their jobs, people get new jobs, people relocate. So the things that we cannot control are the things we just cannot control. But it is how we handle them, how much energy that we give to them that can literally eat away at our time, eat away at the very core and the fabric of who we are. And let me tell you, as y'all were talking, this next part of this question is going to be for Pastor JT, because I have identified in my life that I have 3 kinds of people that I have to watch all the time. And I don't know where they come from. They're just here in my space. And maybe the lesson is for me, and maybe the lesson is for them, or maybe we're all on this big growth curve. But as I wrote them down, it is the people that won't take no for an answer, people who have ulterior motives, and people who want to give you the puppy dog eyes and just talk to you just so they can play on your heartstrings. Pastor JT, when we are dealing with people in our space that bring all of their energy, all of their personalities to us, and we're but one person, how do we buffer ourselves from all of that? Because you probably more than any of us spend a lot of time out and about with multiple types of people coming into your space. How do you preserve you and put up the appropriate buffer for that type of engagement?
Got you. That's a good question. To be honest with you, Dr. Jacquie, in your question, you actually answered it a little bit before. You challenged us for a self-assessment. And when we assess ourselves, I think now we're going back and we're looking at our portfolio, and we're looking at the value of that portfolio. And then now we're asking ourselves, am I where I want to be? And what needs to happen to get me where I need to be? Or what are the things, or who are the people that have caused me from getting to where I want to be? And when you develop those answers that come out of that self-assessment, now you can say, I am. Jesus was very direct. Again, I'm going real churchy. Jesus was very direct because he knew who he was. He wasn't being, boisterous, or he wasn't being braggadocious. He just knew who he was. He said, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the door. He always preferenced about who he was, but he did not allow anybody else to diminish his I am. And in his I am, he wanted to share his I am with so many people. But you know who Jesus said that he couldn't give his I am to?
His own
kinfolk.
His own people.
He said, I wanted to heal them. I wanted to bless them, but they were too familiar with me. And that familiarity did not give them the opportunity to respect the I am that I am. So now, to answer your question about those buffers, in the church world, we call it discernment. We have been given that discernment, but this is the thing that you got to do. You cannot allow your discernment to be influenced by your emotions, because discernment is already telling you, man, them jokers don't want nothing. They have already proven who they are. They have already taken the color out of the box, and the color is red. Now it's your fault you're trying to make it magenta or pink or lavender. The color is red. So you're trying to force them to be something else. And typically their pattern has proven that they are just keeping that same energy. And the reason why they're keeping that same energy is because you are. You have cheapened the value of your yes because you keep giving it to them. That no now gives that yes when they finally get it again. They not going to disrespect this yes, because I don't know when I'll get another one. They gave me no 3 weeks in a row. Now let me go. It's just like if Big Mama kept your kids and Big Mama told you to be here at 11 o'clock and you got that 1:15. That day that Big Mama say no, and then you're like, oh, Big Mama just playing. And then that next Friday you try to take them kids over there, and then Big Mama got the screen door lock. You know, Big Mama ain't playing with that screen door lock. She got the screen door lock. You gonna go find somewhere else for them kids to go. Then now you have to take responsibility for yourself. I did this. I put myself in this position, and I have to govern myself accordingly. I really believe that it starts there with us identifying who we are. And then we only allow in our space what is going to bring in our space what we need for us to continue to be who we are. Because other than that, it's vultures coming in, taking what they need, and they're leaving us. Now, this is the thing. You only see a vulture come around when something is dead. Don't wait until you are on life support to realize that the people around you have been sucking life out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a powerful word right there. That self-reflection and self-assessment, you all, it really does allow us to put things in perspective. And oftentimes our perspective can be skewed by, Pastor Jay just said, the I ams. I listen to a lot of people use the I am a mom, I am a wife, I am a sister, I am a daughter. All of those things have to relate to who you are in relationship to other people. But what about I am whole, I am healed, I am an open receptacle, I am valuable, I am transparent, I am honest. See, those are adjectives that describe who you are as a person. And oftentimes our balance gets off center because all of our I ams are tied up into being something for other people. And so this growth, this development that we're all growing toward together gives us the capacity to say, I know when to pull back. I know when to step out of a situation. I know when to cast people to the side, and it's okay to let people go. I cannot tell you, if you do nothing else this summer in order to get your peace and gain your balance and get your time for yourself, you may just have to let some people go. When we come back after the break, we want to talk about those things because there's some people in your life who, like leeches, are just there because you won't pluck them away. When we're back after the break.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. This is a very stimulating conversation, and I know that it is hard to hear because oftentimes people use and abuse us because we have given them permission to enter into our lives. I think for me, that's the first place that I begin. I know my value and I know my worth. This part of our conversation and dialogue is going to be on that very thing. Where is your value? And what is your rating of it? Because if you are a 9, then people in your life should at least be a 7 or 8 in how they value you as well. But if you are 3, then the people in your life are going to be a 1 or a 2. You have to get to that space of recognizing, identifying, and understanding that your life matters and it means something. But if you're constantly, allowing people to chip off pieces of you that you can never get back, it'll make it difficult for you to see the value in creating time and space for yourself. Stacy, you work with young people, and in working with young people, you give them reading corners and you give them centers. You ask them to go take a walk. When is the right time to start teaching children how to value their time because they themselves are so precious?
Right now, as soon as you do that, the first interaction, because kids today are just coming into the space where they struggle with knowing and identifying with who they are and as a person. And so we tell our kids at all age levels, starting as low as kindergarten, if you don't know who you are, you'll start to believe what the world tell you. And the world has put so many things in place now, and I'm not against any I'm not against any identifications of who you are as a person, but the television, because we have allowed kids to just become so inundated with watching TV and being disconnected from, a lot of social interactions, they have a lot of choices and places to just view different definitions of how you can define yourself. And if they don't have anybody in their circle that can help them look inward and really start being able to identify those I am statements and identifying even what that means, they'll just start picking something up that they got in the streets or that they watched on television and just start identifying with that. So I think as from the womb, we should start reading and having affirmations with students and children so that we can start building into them and don't allow anybody else to just define you.
I think that that's a very smart approach in the sense that oftentimes finding adjectives or teaching kids new words. So it's a teachable moment, if you will. Like, I am a lover of music. If that child happens to enjoy music, well, what kind of music do you like? And then why do you like it? It lends itself to learning opportunities. Children may say, I am a gymnast or I am a track runner. These are things that allow them to build self-esteem, to build an identity around a skill set that helps them really showcase who they are and possibly why they were created. Oftentimes we lose sight of what it looks like to pour into other people, to navigate and guide them toward how to maximize time. I identify often and recognize that parents who have children, multiple kids, are literally running from soccer to football to t-ball practice to gymnastics to ballet to violin. Stacey, is there a way that you help children and parents, I guess I want to say, not be overly busy? Because sometimes you want to keep them busy and engaged, but sometimes busy for business sake is not really healthy.
Right. I think we want to keep children busy, but we also want to give children time to have that unstructured schedule. We schedule that unstructured. This is just time for you to do whatever you feel like you want to do so that they can begin to explore and figure out who that they are but let it be guided. Don't leave them out there by themselves. They need to be guided still yet. But we should allow children just that time not to be running from soccer and baseball and here and there. Because how do I begin to learn myself if I'm just engaged in all these other things? But I think it's important for us to find balance in that, select one or two things. I think we should always let kids explore different options. So when my children was little, I let my daughter play softball, and I noticed on her first game when she was standing out in the field with her hand on her hip and her glove like this, and she was waiting for the ball to come to her, and when it landed over there, she refused to run to it. I knew that wasn't going to be the best thing for her. She probably didn't like that. So we started having conversations. I didn't make her stay. I made her finish the season, but I didn't make her keep doing it over and over and over. We had to just expose you and move you on until we found a thing that she was really passionate about, and then we focused in on making you better at that. So now we didn't have 10 different things that we were doing. We had the one thing that you was really passionate, that you can commit to and that you can follow through with, and then we've worked on that skill set. So just find balance in it. I think sometimes when we have kids and everything, that's more of a parent ego, because you feel like you want your child to be, the best at everything. So fix your ego and find the thing that your child is really interested in and let them build in that.
I like that, because it seems like that's time well spent when both parent and child can agree on what it is they want to commit your time and your money to. And it also frees you up. And I have to say, and this is a selfish moment, I applaud parents who put kids in activities or allow them to have downtime that also allows them to have time for themselves. It's okay. I'm talking to you parents, caregivers. It's okay to drop your kid off at a place or sit in your car and do something for you. You don't have to volunteer.
Right.
You don't have to volunteer. Take some time for yourself in that moment. And those may be trust issues. So allow yourself to grow as an adult while you are also allowing your child to spread their wings and also utilize their voice and how they communicate with other adults that are in their space. You see, sometimes being able to optimize your life and balance who you are, it means pulling yourself emotionally out of an equation. And that's not always easy. Dr. Tierney, you talk a lot about people leveling up and how to master their emotions. Sometimes we can get time back when we're not emotionally vested in a thing or anything for that matter. How do we help people find value in divestment? I think that's the best way to put it, especially when it comes to emotions.
The first thing to just remember that it all comes back to you. You know, we've been talking a lot about how other people can kind of come in, and I think you use the word leeches, and how it's like we need to pluck them off, and, you know, because we're getting so wound up in them and they're wound up in us. But at the end of the day, it comes back to us. You know, in some scenarios, the person that is sending the text message and doing the calling and asking for everything, they don't even know that they are leeching off of you. They don't know that they are, you know, pulling you in that direction, because this is the way that your relationship has always been with them, because this is how invested you've always been. I love that Pastor JT gave the example of his mama, because I got one for my mama too. Mama, I love you. But once upon a time, you know, whenever my mom called, I was able to answer, you know, and if I didn't answer when she called, then she would call my husband and be like, "What you doing?" You know, and so she would do this thing of the multiple calls. Well, now, if she does that, it's like, okay, is something wrong? Because I'm in the middle of a session, I can't answer. So that was a conversation that we had to have, that she did not know that her tendency and proclivity that I allowed was now being problematic. So if we don't actually say something to the person or pull back, like you said, and have that emotional divestment to say, I can't do this anymore, then we will continue to get more of the same. Something else to think about is when we're talking about our time and the loss of time, you know, we have to also look at ourselves and say, you know what, sometimes we lose time, not because of them, but because of us. You know, while we were in the pandemic, we all probably picked up a habit of Netflix binging, you know. And so are you losing your time because you're watching episode after episode after episode on Netflix? Have you fallen into a time warp on TikTok and you're watching all of the videos and the cat videos and the funny videos that keep popping up on your social media feed? You know, so at the same time, we have to look at our emotional place and how are we showing up for ourselves in those spaces where we might be losing some time or falling into these time warps, either in the way that we show up or allow others to show up in our lives, or the way that we are just killing time and wasting time in some of the other habits that we've picked up along the way.
Very powerful statement. Pastor JT, people are probably out there trying to figure out how they can get to a space of knowing what they value. If you had to share with our audience about time and why it's valuable to you, what would you say?
Simple. It's our greatest commodity.
Yeah.
It's one thing that we're never going to get back. Time. I made a post on Facebook that looked at how far we are in the year already. And I said, time is not waiting for you to decide that you want to live. And sadly enough, there are a lot of people that are going to wake up and it's too late. I wish I would have done. I wish I would have done. And if you're listening to me now, I believe that now is the best time for you to take control of your time. But taking control of your time intentionally. I believe Stacy used that word, intentionally, and maybe even using a planner and intentionally scheduling out your day. I think that if you look at a financial budget, it allows you to control the money that comes in, because that budget gives you the power to tell the money where to go. And so every day you are given 24 hours worth of valuable time. And if you don't have anything, please get a planner or even schedule your day out on your phone, on your laptop, but find some way to identify your time, where it goes. And then you'll be able to see that some of the time, as Dr. Tierney said, is wasted, but now you can get that time back and you can make that time valuable as well.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. As you can tell, audience, in this reflection, you are your greatest asset. And how you maximize your time becomes sort of a testimony to who you are and where you're going and what you're doing. It seems that as we are growing and as we're learning how to navigate the space that we have now, that everyone, once again, wants a little piece of our time. I hope that during this pandemic, you have learned how to set aside time for yourself, how to take care of yourself, and how to simply say no. It's perfectly okay to walk away from things that don't fit into your new model of how you want to live. Trust me, people will be okay as the new you emerges in this new season as a person who's learned how to live in balance. Bye now.